Meanwhile, for Chelsea, of course, they're in the market for everything. Chelsea try their luck for Osimhen. Remember, Romelu Lukaku is still a Chelsea player. They're hoping that he will go with Antonio Conte, who we know has a big picture of Lukaku up in his bedroom, given his love for the Belgian striker. They're hoping that he will go to Napoli and then Osimhen will come the other way. James, this has been dragging on. I imagine it will continue to drag on. What is the likelihood of this actually happening?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. So, obviously, for starters, in the Romelu Lukaku side of things, he wants to go to Napoli. He wants to play for Antonio Conte again. Those two have had a fantastic relationship, of course, previously, most obviously at Inter Milan, and that's where he wants to go. He's on about £325,000 a week at Chelsea. Napoli can't get anywhere near that. He's prepared to take a cut. And I still think there's a little bit of a gap between what Napoli want to pay and what he would accept. But I think that's probably not the difficult bit. The difficult bit is the valuation. Chelsea still value Lukaku in excess of about £40 million. And Napoli just simply think he's not worth that, given he's been obviously farmed out on loan for a number of years. And they've obviously got to take on that wage bill, which they feel if they're going to pay a little bit more in wages, then they need to do a compromise on the fee. So that's where I think the Osimhen thing kind of comes in on the flip side, because Napoli obviously value Osimhen very highly. Chelsea are trying to sort of drum that valuation down a bit on the basis that Napoli are looking to sell him to get Lukaku in. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's similar to the Conor Gallagher situation. I don't know if we're going to come on to talk about that as well, but with Conor Gallagher, Felix, there's also those deals are in limbo because they both kind of need to happen, or neither of them happen. So look, it wouldn't be Chelsea if it wasn't a complicated window, and here we are again with a couple of weeks to go, and there's a lot still to happen between now and then.
Well, let's go to a couple of players that you mentioned, starting off with Joao Felix. Haven't we been here before? It didn't work. Why are they going back?
Well, yeah, I mean, so he had 6 months on loan at Stamford Bridge in 2023, as we can see there. Wasn't great, got sent off in his first game, Fulham. He played okay, and there was, I think, a sort of acceptance that he did a reasonable job in difficult circumstances for both the player himself and then also for the club, who are obviously going through yet another sort of transitional period. But no, look, I mean, this is a complicated one, because again, I don't think as Chelsea sit here now they can do Joao Felix and they can do Victor Osimhen unless there's some huge compromise going on from Atleti's side on the Felix side, and then of course with Osimhen and Napoli. So it's a confusing one, because Conor Gallagher's move to Atletico Madrid is all sorted. The fee's agreed, £34 million. He even went to Madrid. He's undergone his medical. He's passed his medical. He was sat there waiting for the green light. That deal has collapsed because Chelsea were supposed to be buying a player from Atletico Madrid. That deal has collapsed, but Atletico need to sell someone before they can get Conor Gallagher in. So because that deal has collapsed, they've now said, OK, well, if you can't do a deal for Osimhen, then what about Joao Felix? Why don't you take him? You know him, you've had him before, he's played in the Premier League. We'll do you a deal. Why not? Give us a bit of money and then your Conor Gallagher can come to us. So they're doing it quite a lot on the fly at the moment. Chelsea are, they've shown since the Olley Clearlake takeover that they're quite happy to do things on the fly and get creative and be inventive in the market. So it is a deal that they are looking at as a possibility, but I don't think they're going to get quite to the stage where they just do Joao Felix so they can get Conor Gallagher out the door. But how they've put themselves in this position with Conor Gallagher, who they've been trying to shift for, the last two windows, and they've now left him. He's now at Cobham. He's now training on his own away from the first team, waiting to find out whether Chelsea are going to sign another player so he can go to Atletico Madrid. It's a bit of a farcical situation, really.
Who is the person who's calling the shots, James? Who is the person that has seen something from Joao Felix that I think we agree that we haven't seen over the last 3 or 4 seasons, that think, yes, he's the guy we need to come in to make us better?
Well, but I don't think that's what's happened here. I think Atletico have offered them Joao Felix, and they've said, right, what do you think? And they thought, well, yeah, maybe let's see if we can, work the numbers and see where we are, and maybe we can find a place for him. I don't, when you say who's calling the shots on the Chelsea transfer policy, that is a whole show in itself, because they've got so many people who are invested in that. They've got co-sporting directors, they've got co-owners, they've got a head of recruitment, they've got a goalkeeping coach who's been making recommendations, and of course they've got the manager. And look, I mean, I spent a little bit of time with Chelsea on their pre-season tour of America, and it was clear, even 3 weeks in, that there were just one or two rumblings already about whether Enzo Maresca was entirely happy with the players they were going after, who they were signing, and the composition of the squad going forward. Because there's so many voices at Chelsea, so many people having their say. You've got to justify their sort of bizarre job title, whether it's global head of this or, supreme commander of that, whatever it is. They've got all these kind of, recruitment people, and they need to have their input. And I think what's significant for Enzo Maresca is that the Dewsbury Hall deal, which we've got up there, is the second biggest incoming. I think that's a really important deal for Maresca, that needs to come off, because my understanding is that he wasn't ever a player that Chelsea as a club were particularly interested in before Maresca came over. Obviously, Maresca joined from Leicester. Dewsbury Hall's come from Leicester. He knows him. He trusts him. He thinks he can be a player who can really kick on and develop. But if Dewsbury Hall doesn't work, if in January Maresca says, look, I think I need this player, I think I need that player, I want to go after this guy, Chelsea could turn around and say, well, we gave you Dewsbury Hall. He's not had a great 6 months. Actually, we trust our judgment. We've got our own team. We've got our own analytics guys. Yes, we value your input. Yes, of course, we take on board what you're saying, but we're going to go in a different direction. And the fact of the matter is that Maresca's having an input, yes, but he's not the one who's picking every player they're signing. And Chelsea have been down this road before, and it's not worked. They clearly feel they're getting to a point where their squad is good enough that they feel it's complete, and a head coach just needs to come in, mould it together and make them play. But we've not really seen that done by many clubs without a very high turnover of managers. And Maresca, I'm not suggesting he's under pressure already, because he's not kicked a ball in a competitive fashion yet. But if he doesn't start well, I think the fans are already going to be thinking, well, is this guy just another mouthpiece for Clear Lake and Bowley? Is he really going to take it to the next level? Is he really the one that's going to bring it all together? Or are we going to go through another sort of difficult campaign like they did with Pochettino, like they did with Graham Potter, and just go back to another manager at the start of next season, or even earlier than that, and start again? It's a very confused picture at the moment, which I hope in that long rambling answer I've done some justice.
Now, it may surprise you to learn that we get some negative comments from our YouTube viewers, maybe on Twitter, saying that we're anti-Chelsea, always so negative about Chelsea. But from the outside looking in, James, it just looks like an absolute dumpster fire. How do the fans feel about it all?
Look, I think the problem is, well, the fans, that club has been through a level of change that is almost unprecedented in football, really. If you think about the circumstances of the sale, it was an enforced sale due to obviously the owner's alleged ties to the Russian President Vladimir Putin. So that whole sale came through because of a war. Very, very rare that a football club would change hands, or a big elite football club would change hands in those circumstances. And then look at the turnover. All of the key executives basically have gone. The recruitment staff have gone. The backroom staff have changed. Almost the entire playing squad has changed in the last sort of 24, 36 months. The level of change at that club is absolutely incredible. The only thing that hasn't changed really are the fans. And the fans became used under 20 years of Roman Abramovich, whatever the merits of him as an owner, we can park that for the purposes of this conversation. He got that club into a winning place, a winning mentality. They were ruthless. They sacked their managers because their managers didn't deliver. But there wasn't this rapid turnover of players. They were very targeted in the market. They were very shrewd. Yes, they often paid, top dollar for players, but they went and identified those players and built a squad that was capable of sustaining itself, almost impervious to the manager. You think about Roberto Di Matteo winning the Champions League. They didn't win it because of Roberto Di Matteo. They won it because of the squad that they built over a number of years and the power of that dressing room. So I think the fans are really bemused about what's going on. And I understand that there's, yes, maybe we are quite negative about Chelsea, but you speak to people who work at the club, you speak to people who deal with the club, whether that's agents or, PRs or those kind of people. And there is a lot of head scratching going on about what the direction of the club is. And really, if Chelsea want to change the perception of themselves, the owners need to be front and centre. They need to own up to this. They need to speak. They need to convey their message. They need to talk to the fans, ideally through an exclusive interview with me on ESPN, to really get down into the detail of where they're going with this, because they leave a vacuum, and that vacuum is then filled by all of us trying to make sense of it. And really, they've only got themselves to blame if they're worried about a sort of negative perception of what they're doing and the process that they're following.
Well, I'm sure they're big fans. Stevie, would you like to add anything?
You know, football is one of these businesses where almost everybody has a slightly different opinion on a player.
Right.
And when you end up having so many cooks in the kitchen that Chelsea have, why you end up with strange decisions and nowhere to pin the blame or to rely on. And so when you have that sort of situation, and you've got co-owners as well, and they're trying to throw money at it, that's why you get a whole pot of nothing.
Right.
You know, you've got to employ somebody who has the finals. If you want to employ 5 scouts, that's fine. But there has to be one employee who makes the final decision, and then you give him the trust, and then when it doesn't work out, he gets fired, and then you try and get somebody else. You can't have 2 and 3 and 4 people who all are at the same level and nobody makes the decision. Football is a completely different business than almost any other business on the planet.
It is prediction time. Please tell me you put Chelsea to win the league, James. That would be brilliant.
No, I don't have them. I don't think I have them in the. Oh, I have them 6th. Okay, yeah, I think 6th is the peak of what they can hope for. Really, I don't know. I mean, look, maybe the team will gel. They've obviously got a lot of talented individuals, and Maresca did a great job at Leicester. And you know, maybe we should sort of accentuate the positives of that. He got them playing good football. He got them playing out from the back. Yes, there were mistakes made in the pre-season matches. They lost 4 of those 6 games, but there were signs there that they were starting to understand what he wanted from them. Yes, it's going to take a bit of time, but when you look at the strength of the other side, you look at. I mean, I've got City there as champions. I was very, very close to putting Arsenal. I think Arsenal are just nailed on to have another very, very serious run at it this year. I think they bought well in Calafiori. They're probably going to do another one, maybe Moreno, to strengthen the midfield as well. And if they get another wide player in, then it's hard to see where there's sort of weaknesses in that squad. I think Liverpool will do some business before the window closes, and that should strengthen Arne Slot there. And I think Spurs are going to have a good season under Postecoglou. They've got another year of understanding what he wants from them. It's obviously a pretty unique way of playing. I think they bought well in Solanke. They've got Archie Gray there, who's a very talented youngster. Lucas Bergvall could be anything really, snatched from under Barcelona's noses, and there's a lot of excitement around him at Hotspur Way. So, you know, you look at those 4. Well, I look at those 4 and just think I cannot see the relative calm around those teams. And obviously Arne Slot, there's a big unknown there in terms of how he's going to replace Jurgen Klopp. But that squad was so good last season that you just look at Chelsea and think I don't know where they get the stability from. They have to start well. They absolutely have to start well. And they've got Man City at home in the first game. You know, it doesn't really get much tougher than that. But if they start well, then there's a little bit of calm water for Maresca to sail into, and perhaps he can lead them into a positive season. But as we sit here now, knowing what we know about all the teams, you putting them in the top 4, you've either had to have played for them or have them, you know, a giant leap of faith in trusting them.
What was the award that you had there, James, in your picture?
By the way, is his middle name James Benjamin Button Olley?
Oh.
That picture, he's way younger now than he ever was.
Oh, what a lovely compliment. Isn't it?
It's a backhanded compliment, but a compliment nonetheless.
Oh, tell me the secret, Jim.
There you are. It's moisturising.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So what award is that, James?
I might have had a drink in that picture. That's probably why.
Right.
It's the Sports Journalism Award for Story of the Year, Scoop of the Year from a couple of years ago.
What was the story?
It was I say a couple of years ago. It was about 5 years ago. Wembley for sale. The sale of Wembley Stadium.
Oh, it's a bit boring.
Okay, well,
it's not that exciting, is it?
Well, it was in depth.
Come on,
how many scoops were there?
It only drove the national conversation in England for months, mate. That's all, you know.
God, can't been that much happening. Must be the summer.
On a serious note, biggest mistake they made. Knocking Wembley down.
Oh, no, here we go.
Right, James?
All right, yeah, we're not going down that road. Biggest mistake. Ali, what's your predictions? Let's take a look.
Can we call you from here on out, Dan, Supreme Commander?
There we go. Oh! What? That is definitely not Benjamin Button.
Hold on. No. Look at that hair.
Wow. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, United, Newcastle.
Well, yes, and honestly, with Manchester City, while I agree that they're as vulnerable as they've ever been under Pep Guardiola, look, they won 4 in a row, and I think they've earned the right to continue to, or for us to continue to believe in them, because I still think that they have a better squad than most teams in the Premier League, and they have the experience of a team that knows how to win when it counts, which I cannot say the same thing about Arsenal, and I don't quite know exactly what Liverpool are going to be under Arne Slot. We feel very positive about it. There have been some positive early signs. Let's see in the middle of the season where they are. Arsenal, really close to City, just not quite there yet. And then after that, it was just kind of picking numbers and saying, maybe Manchester United get it right, and maybe Spurs get it right. Newcastle, I don't know if confident is the word, but comfortable enough to say that this is a team that at the very least, unlike everybody else around them, there's a sense of consistency there that I think would be important in a long, long season. And so beyond that, I just think Manchester City, again, they have earned the right to continue to believe in them. And until they're knocked off, I'm going to continue to pick Manchester City.
We'll have to wait until Stevie's predictions, which is tomorrow. How exciting for everybody involved. James, thank you very much. Much appreciated, as always.